In July of 1518, the city of Strasbourg was bucking under the weight of intersecting crises. Back-to-back famines had left the lower classes starving, deep poverty gripped the population, and a pervasive spiritual anxiety blanketed the closed, narrow streets. Out of this despair-ridden environment emerged a single anomaly. A peasant woman named Frau Trophäa stepped out of her home, walked into an unpaved dirt alleyway, and began to dance in utter silence. Her limbs twitched and her torso twisted in violent, jerky motions, but observers noticed immediately that her face did not reflect celebration. It was locked in an expression of pure, waking horror. She was sweating profusely, visibly fighting against her own body. She was trapped inside her own musculature. Commanded by an unseen physiological operator, the involuntary choreography forced her to move continuously through the blistering afternoon heat and straight through the pitch-black night. By the third day of continuous motion, the soles of her shoes had disintegrated entirely. She was left moving on raw, bleeding feet, cutting a visceral red path against the dirt, yet her legs refused to stop. Authorities eventually dragged a hallucinating Frau Trophäa away to a remote shrine, but her physical removal left a lingering question: how a single, highly localized psychological fracture possessed the momentum to compound into an epidemic that would collapse the entire city. Trophäa's breakdown had locked into the public's traumatized minds. Within a month, the hysteria multiplied exponentially, dragging over 400 peasants into the loop. The affliction was a physical paradox. Victims wept and begged for mercy, but their limbs maintained a frantic, mechanical momentum. Faced with an expanding humanitarian crisis, city leaders called in elite physicians who evaluated the situation through the flawed medical theory of the four humors. They diagnosed the affliction as a physiological imbalance caused by hot blood. Their prescribed treatment was a literal death trap. They instructed that the victims must keep dancing day and night to purge the illness through absolute physical exhaustion. Instead of quarantining the affected, the ruling authorities leaned into catastrophic scientific ignorance, weaponizing the illness and actively accelerating the plague. The city government systematically cleared out the central marketplace. They constructed large, ash-gray wooden stages, their rough timbers built specifically to hold the weight of the afflicted masses. To guarantee the victims kept moving, magistrates hired professional pipers, drummers, and horn players. The piercing pipes and hypnotic drums stripped away the exhausted peasants' mental resistance, trapping them in the collective momentum. Pushed beyond the limits of human endurance under the blistering sun, the human body reached its biomechanical breaking point. Their cardiovascular systems began to fail. Dancers dropped to the wooden floorboards. At the height of the crisis, 15 people were dying every day from massive heart attacks, strokes, and dehydrated delirium. By following this medical directive, the city government ensured that the marketplace was no longer a center of trade, but a place where the state systematically oversaw the physical collapse of its own people. In early September, the epidemic finally waned. City officials completely reversed their strategy, banned public dancing, tore down the stages, and plunged the city back into an abrupt, heavy silence. Modern researchers remain divided on the core trigger, isolating two primary theories. The first is ergotism, a poisoning caused by a toxic fungus that grows on damp rye crops. This microscopic view shows the dense internal fungal cell structure surrounding the central stem. When consumed by humans, the poisoning induces severe symptoms, specifically vivid, terrifying hallucinations and violent muscle spasms. But the biology of ergotism presents a strict constraint. The fungus cuts off blood flow to the extremities. Maintaining sustained, hyper-coordinated physical movement on starved muscles for several days is a biological impossibility. This points toward the second, more definitive diagnosis: mass psychogenic illness. The population suffered a severe psychological fracture caused by unmanageable, compounding societal stress. The specific trigger was deeply rooted in the era superstitions. The populace shared a terrifying belief in the curse of Saint Vitus, a saint thought to punish sinners by forcing them to dance uncontrollably. When traumatized observers witnessed Frau Trophäa's initial breakdown, they interpreted it through this specific, fearful lens. Armed with this superstitious belief, the minds of the onlookers effectively hijacked their own bodies, translating shared trauma into an involuntary physical reflex. In the 16th century, divine curses were viewed with the same certainty as physical loss. This shared cultural expectation allowed the trauma to spread, as the minds of observers converted a religious fear into a literal physical breakdown. The dancing plague of 1518 remains a haunting testament to the power of collective panic, a dark, rhythmic loop of human behavior that ground its own machinery down until it collapsed into silence.
If you found this video helpful, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. I'll see you in the next one.